The sun was dying, painting the horizon in shades of blood orange and deep purple. The sky seemed to burn, as if warning something terrible was about to happen. The waves below roared, smashing against the black rocks with violent force, their spray rising high like angry ghosts. On top of that lonely cliff stood a rich man. His black coat swayed in the chilling wind. In his hands he gripped the handles of a wheelchair. Inside the chair sat a small girl. She looked no older than 13. Her legs, thin and weak, were wrapped in a soft blanket. Her hands trembled as she clutched the sides of the chair. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice shaking. Why are we here? Sun is going down. It's cold. Can we go home?" Her father didn't answer. His face was stiff, cold as stone. His eyes weren't on hers. They were on the edge of the cliff, just a few feet away. The girl's lips trembled. Something felt wrong. Her father had been quiet all day. He hadn't spoken a word as they drove up the twisting, lonely road to this place. Now, the only sound was the crashing waves and the distant call of crows circling above. She swallowed hard. "Daddy?" she asked again, her voice breaking. "Why, are you looking at the water like that?" "You're Stoke." His voice low and hollow. "It's peaceful here," he said. His fingers tightened around the wheelchair handles. Far away from everything. Far away from problems. The girl's eyes widened. Her breathing quickened. She turned her head, scanning the empty road behind them. Not a soul. Just the wind and the endless drop to the sea below. Her heart pounded in her chest. She knew her father was wealthy, powerful. But he hadn't been himself lately. For weeks, he had been distant, cold, whispering to people on the phone when he thought. She was asleep now. Standing here, she felt something she'd never thought she'd feel around him. Fear, Daddy. "Can we leave now, please?" she begged, her voice barely more than a whisper. The man said nothing. His shadow stretched long and dark across the rocky ground as the last rays of sun dipped lower. His knuckles turned white as he gripped the wheelchair. The girl's breathing grew shallow. Her instincts screamed at her something is wrong. She tightened her grip on the blanket over her legs, wishing she could stand, wishing she could run. But her legs were useless. She looked up at her father again. Why are you looking at me like that?" she asked, her voice trembling, his jaw clenched. Finally, he leaned down, his face close to hers. "You don't have to worry anymore," he whispered coldly. "This is the last time you'll suffer." Her eyes filled with tears. "What do you mean?" she stammered. But deep down, she already knew. The man stood up straight and began to push the wheelchair forward. The gravel crunched beneath. The wheels as they moved closer to the cliff's deadly edge. The girl screamed, "Daddy, no, please, I'll be good. Please don't do this. Please don't do this." Her cries echoed across the empty cliffs. But no one answered, or so it seemed. In the distance, behind a cluster of rocks and a thin, scraggly tree, someone was watching. A figure crouched low, almost hidden by the fading light. His dark skin blended into the growing shadows. He was young now, older than 16. His sharp eyes followed every move the rich man made. His fists clenched as he watched the girl cry and beg for her life. The boy whispered to himself, his breath cold in the wind. "Not on my watch." The man pushed the chair another foot closer. The edge of the cliff crumbled slightly beneath, the weight sending small rocks tumbling into the roaring sea below. The girl's screams turned to sobs. Her father muttered, almost to himself, "It's better this way. For both of us. No one will ever know." But he was wrong. Someone already knew, and that someone was stepping out from the shadows. The wind grew stronger, howling like a warning. Dark clouds began to gather in the sky, covering the last traces of sunlight. The sea below seemed louder now, like it wanted to swallow whatever came near. The girl's hands trembled as she gripped the blanket tighter. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Daddy, please, we can go home. Won't be a problem, I promise." The rich man's eyes were distant, cold, as if he wasn't even listening to her. He whispered to himself, his words almost lost in the wind. They said it would be quick. She won't suffer. It's the only way. The girl froze. She had never heard her father speak like this. Her heart pounded so hard she could hear the blood rushing in her ears. She tried to move her legs, tried to stand, but nothing happened. She was trapped completely at his mercy. "Daddy," she cried out louder this time, her tears streaming down her cheeks. "Why are you doing this? I'm your daughter." The man stopped for a moment. His hand trembled on the handle of the wheelchair. His jaw tightened, his face twisting into something between pain and determination. Without looking at her, he muttered, I can't take care of you anymore. You'll understand someday." Then he began to push again. The front wheels rolled closer to the cliff. The gravel shifted under the weight, a chilling sound as tiny stones fell into the dark water far below. The girl screamed, her voice echoing through the empty cliffs. "Help! Somebody, help me!" Her cries traveled through the wind, reaching the ears of the one person she didn't know was near. Behind a large rock, the black boy crouched low, his sharp eyes locked on the scene, his chest rising and falling quickly. He had seen many things on these cliff-drunken tourists, careless hikers, but never this. This wasn't an accident. This was murder. He felt his hands curl into fists. His instincts screamed to jump out and stop the man. But another thought stopped him for a moment. Who was this man? Even from the distance, he could see the expensive coat, the shiny watch, glinting faintly under the dim light. This wasn't just anyone. This was someone powerful. Someone dangerous. But then, the boy looked at the girl, her tear-streaked face, her trembling hands, her desperate cries for help, and he knew he couldn't stay hidden. Not anymore. The rich man took another step forward, his expensive shoes sinking into the loose dirt near the cliff's edge. The wind picked up again, almost pushing him sideways. Still, his grip on the wheelchair didn't loosen. The girl's sobs turned into frantic screams. "Please, I don't want to die. Daddy, please." The man hissed under his breath, "Stop. Screaming, just close your eyes. It'll be over soon." Her screams only grew louder. The boy behind the rock clenched his teeth. He pulled out his old, cracked phone and quickly hit the record button. The red light blinked. He whispered to himself, "If I can't stop him, the world will see this." But deep down, he knew just recording wasn't enough. If that man pushed the chair, the girl would be gone before the video could save her. The boy's heartbeat thundered in his chest. He glanced around. No one else was near. The road behind them was still empty, the sound of distant traffic too far to matter. It was just him, the man, the girl, and the endless sea below. The rich man bent down slightly, his face close to his daughter's. His voice was cold, like ice. "Close your eyes, sweetheart. Don't fight it. It's for the best," the girl sobbed, shaking her head violently. "No, no, Daddy. Please, I'll do anything. Please don't hurt me." Her tiny hands reached for him, gripping his sleeve desperately. For a moment, his eyes softened. For a moment, it looked like he might stop. But then, his face hardened again. He yanked his sleeve free and whispered, "I'm sorry." Choice. He began to push harder. The wheelchair jolted forward. The edge of the cliff now just inches away, and that's when it happened. A sharp sound cut through the wind. Snap. A twig broke behind the rocks. The rich man froze. His head jerked up. His eyes darted around the cliff, scanning the shadows. "Who's there?" he barked, his voice low but tense. The girl gasped, her tearful eyes darting toward the sound. Someone's here," she whispered, her voice full of sudden hope. The wind carried a faint echo of footsteps. Slow, careful. Someone was moving closer. The man straightened, his grip on the wheelchair loosening slightly. His sharp eyes scanned the darkening rocks. But he saw nothing, just shadows. After a tense moment, he shook his head. "Just the wind," he muttered. Then he looked down at his daughter again, his face colder than ever. Now, where were we? The girl screamed again, but this time, her scream was answered. A faint, determined voice came from the darkness. "You were about to make the biggest mistake of your life." The man spun around, his eyes locked on a figure stepping out from behind the rocks. A young black boy, maybe 16, wearing a worn hoodie and old sneakers. His phone was in his hand, its screen glowing faintly, was recording everything. The boy's eyes didn't waver. "I saw everything," he said, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. "And if you take one more step, the whole world will too." The wind howled again, carrying the sound of the waves crashing far. Below, the man's jaw tightened. His grip on the wheelchair faltered. For the first time tonight, he hesitated. The air grew heavier, as if the wind itself held its breath. The crashing waves below seemed distant now, muffled by the tension on the cliff. Only the sound of the young boy's slow footsteps echoed as he stepped closer, his phone raised, the red recording light glowing faintly in the growing darkness. The rich man straightened, his cold eyes narrowing at the boy. His coat whipped in the wind, the expensive fabric snapping like a flag. His voice was low, sharp like a blade. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" The boy didn't flinch. He tightened his grip on his phone. "I was walking by, and I saw everything," he said. His voice trembled slightly, but his eyes didn't. "You push her, she goes over, and I make sure the police and the whole world see it." The rich man's jaw clenched, his expression unreadable. For a moment, he glanced back at the girl. Her tear-streaked face lit up with a flicker of hope as she looked at the boy. Someone had come. Someone had seen. The girl whispered through trembling lips, "Help. Please, don't let him do it." Her father's face hardened. He straightened, his imposing figure blocking the wind as he faced the boy fully. "You don't understand," the man said, his tone firm but eerily calm. "She's suffering. This is mercy. You think you're helping her, but you're not. You're just making it harder." The boy's brows furrowed. He took another step, forward, his sneakers scraping against the gravel. "Mercy. You call this mercy? Pushing your daughter off a cliff?" His voice rose, cutting through the wind. "She's your child, not your burden." The man's eyes flashed, a mix of anger and something darker, fear. He glanced again at the glowing phone in the boy's hand. "You need to leave now," he said coldly. "You don't know who I am. You don't know what you're getting into. Walk away, ass, and forget what you saw." The boy didn't move, his feet planted firmly on the ground, his phone still pointed. At the man, his heart raced, but he kept his voice steady. "Oh, no. I'm not leaving. Not until she's safe." The girl clutched the armrest of her wheelchair, her knuckles white. Her wide eyes darted between her father and the boy. For the first time, she felt a flicker of hope, fear, hope that someone cared. Fear that this could still end badly. The rich man took a slow step forward, his expensive shoes crunching the gravel beneath him. "Listen, boy," he said, his voice smooth but threatening. "You think that phone will save you? You think anyone will believe some street kid over me?" The boy didn't back down. "I don't care what they believe. All I know is, if you push her, video will make sure you never see daylight again." For the first time, the man's confidence cracked. His eyes darted to the cliff edge, then back to the boy. He could feel the situation slipping away from him, inch by inch, like the gravel sliding off the cliff into the roaring sea. His daughter, through her tears, whispered shakily, "Please. Just stop, Daddy. Please." The man's hands trembled on the wheelchair handles. His jaw clenched so tightly, a vein pulsed at his temple. He whispered to himself, almost too quiet to hear, "I have no choice. No choice." The boy took another step closer, his voice firm but calm. "Yes, you do," he said. "Step away from her. Now, or I swear you'll regret it." The wind howled again, rattling the branches of the lonely tree near the cliff. In the distance, faint headlights flickered along the winding road, far but approaching slowly. The rich man noticed the lights. His expression shifted, panic flashing in his eyes for the first time. Time was running out. He looked back at the boy, his cold demeanor cracking as his voice grew louder. "You think you can ruin me, boy? Do you know who I am?" His voice echoed across the cliff. "I can make people disappear. I can make you disappear." The boy didn't flinch, stepped forward again, standing just a few feet away now. His phone still recording, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "You're not scaring me. You can't buy your way out of this. Not tonight. Not with me watching. The man's face twisted in anger. For a moment his hand left the wheelchair handle and clenched into a fist. Looked like he might lunge. At the boy, the girl gasped, her trembling voice breaking through the tension. Stop. Please, both of you. Just stop. Her voice cracked, barely audible over the roaring waves, but neither man nor boy looked away from each other. Two figures, locked in a silent battle of wills on the edge of the world. The headlights on the distant road drew closer. The faint hum of a car engine now audible over the wind. The rich man noticed again, his face growing more desperate. He couldn't finish what he started, not with witnesses coming. His breathing quickened. He muttered to himself, no one can know, no one can know. And then, with a sudden movement, he stepped back from the wheelchair. His cold eyes flicked to the boy. This isn't over, he hissed. He took a step back, his hand slipping into his coat pocket as if reaching for something. The boy noticed. His grip on the phone tightened as he braced himself.
What are you doing?
He demanded, his voice louder now. But before the man could act, the sound of tires crunching gravel echoed nearby. The car was approaching the cliff road, its headlights cutting through the growing darkness. The rich man froze, his hands still in his pocket. His jaw tightened, and for the first time looked uncertain. The boy took the opportunity to step closer to the wheelchair, placed a protective hand on the girl's shoulder. Her tear-streaked face turned toward him, whispering softly, "Thank you. Please don't leave me." The boy nodded, his eyes never leaving the man. "I won't," he said firmly. "Not until you're safe." The car's headlights grew brighter, closer, casting long shadows across the cliff. The rich man slowly backed away from the wheelchair, his expression hardening once again as he muttered under his breath, "You'll regret this, boy. Both of you will. But for now," he didn't make another move, not with witnesses arriving. The wind carried the sound of the car pulling up nearby and the faint sound of a car door opening. Someone else was about to enter this dangerous standoff. The night grew colder, and the wind carried a sharp bite. The sea below thundered like an angry beast, throwing its waves against the rocks, as if urging someone to fall. The headlights from the approaching car grew brighter, their glow casting long, shifting shadows across the cliff. The girl clung to the armrest of her wheelchair, her body trembling, her lips pale from fear. The boy stood beside her now, his phone still recording, his hand gripping the chair tightly to keep it steady. He didn't dare take his eyes off the rich man standing a few feet away. The man's coat whipped around him as the wind howled. His sharp eyes flicked between the boy, the girl, and the road. Every second, the lights of the car drew nearer, cutting through the darkness. Closing in on his secret, he hissed under his breath, his voice almost lost in the gusts. This wasn't supposed to happen. Nobody was supposed to be here. His hand slipped deeper into his coat pocket, fingers twitching as if searching for something hidden. The boy noticed. His stance stiffened. He raised his phone higher, his voice firm, though his heart pounded. In his chest. "Take your hand out of your pocket. Now." Man's cold eyes met the boy's. "Or what? You'll call the cops?" he sneered, his voice low and threatening. "They won't believe you. They'll believe me. I own half this town. Do you even know who you're dealing with, boy?" The boy didn't move an inch. His voice stayed steady, though his fingers trembled slightly around his phone. "I don't care who you are. If you take one more step toward her, you'll regret it." The girl's soft whimper broke the standoff for a moment. She whispered through trembling lips, "Please, just stop. Don't hurt him either." Her teary eyes darted between the two figures, the man she once trusted, the stranger risking everything for her. The sound of the car's engine grew louder, the vehicle now turning onto the gravel road near the cliff. Its headlights illuminated the three of them, two standing figures and a terrified girl in a wheelchair, casting them all in a harsh white glow. The man cursed under his breath, his composure slipping. He took a step back, his polished shoes crunching on the gravel. "Fine," he muttered coldly, his eyes narrowing at the boy. "This isn't the end. You think you're saving her, but you have no idea what you're getting into." The boy's voice was calm, but his eyes blazed with determination. "I don't care what I'm getting into. I'm not letting you kill her." His grip tightened. On the wheelchair, as he added, not while I'm here. The man's lips curled into a cold, humorless smile. You think this is over just because someone else is coming? He gestured toward the road with a tilt of his head. They won't know the truth. I'll tell them you were harassing us, that you were trying to rob me. The boy raised an eyebrow, unshaken. All while I've got you on video pushing your daughter toward a cliff. He tilted his phone slightly, letting the glow of the screen reflect off the man's face. Good luck explaining that. For the first time, the man's cold mask cracked. A flicker of unease crossed his face. The boy had proof. Proof he couldn't erase. The car rolled to a stop just a few yards away, its headlights blindingly bright as the engine cut off. A door opened, and heavy boots crunched on the gravel. A tall man stepped out, his flashlight in hand, his voice cutting through the wind. Hey, what's going on here? The rich man quickly straightened, forcing a calm, collected expression onto his face. He stepped away from the cliff edge and toward the approaching figure. Officer, he said smoothly, his voice suddenly warm and convincing. Thank God you're here. This boy was threatening me and my daughter. The boy's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak yet. He held the phone steady, the recording light still glowing red. The girl's eyes widened in panic as she looked at the officer. Her voice cracked as she cried, No, that's not true. He was going to push me. The officer's eyes shifted between the rich man, the crying girl, and the boy holding the phone. The wind carried the tension like a knife, every breath visible in the cold air. The rich man's smooth voice continued, dripping with practiced confidence. She's confused, officer. She's sick. And this boy, he's trying to extort me. Look at him. Does he look trustworthy to you? His eyes darted toward the boy, his lips curling into a faint sneer. The boy finally spoke, his voice calm but loud enough to cut through the wind. Check my phone, officer. I recorded everything. Every word, every step, every second of him pushing her toward the edge. The officer's flashlight swung toward the phone, the red recording light glinting in the dark. The rich man's confident. Fakata faltered for a split second, his eyes narrowing sharply at the boy. The officer frowned, his voice firm. Everyone stay where you are. No one moves until I see what's going on here. The girl let out a shaky breath, tears still streaking her cheeks. For the first time all night, she felt a flicker of safety. Someone had seen, someone had heard. But as the officer stepped closer, the rich man's hand twitched inside his coat pocket again, his cold eyes locked on the boy. And the wind carried his low, chilling whisper, just loud enough for the boy to hear. This isn't over. If I can't finish it tonight, I'll finish it another day. The boy didn't respond. He simply kept the phone raised, his eyes unflinching. He knew the man wasn't bluffing. But tonight, with the officer here, with the girl safe for the moment, the man couldn't act. The waves roared louder below, as if echoing the storm still. Brewing between them, the headlights illuminated their faces, the boy's calm defiance, the girl's terror, and the rich man's growing frustration. And as the officer approached, hand resting near his holster, the standoff tightened. 4. Now the girl was safe. But the night was far from over. The officer's boots crunched on the gravel as he stepped closer, his flashlight beam cutting through the cold night air. The beam first landed on the girl, her tear-streaked face, her trembling hands gripping the armrest of the wheelchair. Then it swept over to the boy standing firm beside her, his phone still raised, its red recording light glowing like a warning. Finally, it stopped on the rich man, his polished shoes and expensive coat still dusted with bits of loose gravel from the cliff's edge. The officer's brow furrowed. What's going on here? Someone start talking? Now? The wind howled, carrying the salty sting of the ocean into their lungs. The rich man straightened, his voice turning calm and controlled, like a rehearsed speech. Officer, thank goodness you arrived. This young man, he gestured toward the boy with a dismissive flick of his hand, has been threatening us. My daughter is sick, confused, and frightened. And this stranger is making it worse. The boy didn't react to the insult. Simply tilted his phone so the recording screen was clearly visible to the officer. "Sir, I recorded everything," he said, his voice, even though the tension in his shoulders was clear. Every word, every step, every time he pushed her closer to the edge. The girl's voice cracked as she spoke up, her words shaky but desperate. "No, he's lying, officer. My dad, he was going to kill me. He said it was better this way. Please, you have to believe me." She gripped the armrest tighter, her thin frame shaking from both fear and the cold wind. The officer glanced between the three of them, his face stern but unreadable. Then he extended his hand toward the boy. "Let me see the video." The boy hesitated. Only for a second, then carefully handed over the phone, the recording still playing. The officer's flashlight reflected off the screen as he scrolled back and hit play. The sound of the waves was faint in the recording, but the voices were clear to girls' sobs, the father's cold words. His muttered, "This is the only way," as the wheels crunched closer to the edge. The officer's brow darkened as he listened. The rich man's confident posture began to falter as the recording continued. He stepped forward, his hands raised. "Slightly, officer. You have to understand this is taken out of context. She's been suffering for years. She's stepped back," the officer ordered, his voice sharp. "Now." The man froze, his lips pressing into a thin line as he slowly lowered his hands. For the first time, his control over the situation was cracking. The wind grew stronger, tossing the edges of the man's coat and making the girl's blanket flutter like a trapped bird. The boy stayed close to her, his stance protective as his eyes never left the man. The officer pocketed the phone carefully, then reached for his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 12. I need backup at Cliffside Point. Possible attempted homicide. One suspect detained, one minor in need of immediate care." The rich man's jaw tightened at the word homicide. He took a step forward, his voice rising, tinged with desperation and anger. "Are you insane? Do you know who I am? I own businesses, property. I donate to the police foundation. For God's sake. You're going to take the word of some street kid and a confused girl over mine? Da-da-da." Officer's gaze didn't waver. His hand rested casually on the holster at his hip as he replied, "I'm taking the word of a video. When unless you want this to get worse, step back and keep quiet until backup arrives." The man's face darkened, but he said nothing. Instead, he turned his gaze toward the boy, his cold eyes narrowing. He didn't speak, but the look alone carried a silent threat. "This isn't over." The girl let out a shaky sob, whispering to the boy, "Thank you." "If you hadn't been here," her voice trailed off, her tears falling freely now. She looked so small, so fragile, her blanket slipping slightly to reveal the thinness of her legs. The boy crouched slightly, so his eyes met hers. "You're safe now," he said softly, though he kept his voice low enough so the man couldn't hear the tremble beneath it. "I'm not going anywhere until you're okay." She clutched the edge of his hoodie, her eyes wide with fear. "Please, don't leave me alone with him, not even for a second." "I won't," the boy promised, his voice firm this time. "I swear." In the distance, the sound of another engine rumbled, a second patrol car making its way down the winding road toward them. The wind carried the faint hum of a helicopter far off over the ocean, though none of them noticed yet. The officer stood, firm, his eyes scanning the scene as his flashlight swept over the cliff edge. The gravel, the footprints leading dangerously close to the drop. Every detail added to the silent evidence building against the rich man. The man finally broke the silence, his voice quieter now but laced with venom. "You're making a mistake, officer." "And you," his eyes cut to the boy, "you think you're a hero now? Wait until you see how fast the world turns on you when I'm done." The boy didn't reply. He just stood, his stance unyielding. As the faint red and blue glow of another patrol car began to reflect off the rocks around, "Them," the girl whispered again, her voice barely audible over the wind. "What's going to happen to us now?" The boy glanced at her, then at the man, and finally at the approaching lights. His jaw tightened as he said softly, "Whatever happens next, I won't let him hurt you again." The second patrol car pulled up, its headlights flooding the scene with even more harsh white light. Two more officers stepped out, their radios crackling as they took in the tense tableau. A trembling girl in a wheelchair, A determined boy with fire in his eyes, an officer holding a phone as evidence, and a furious, cornered rich man whose power couldn't save him tonight. The waves below roared, louder than ever, as if demanding justice for what nearly happened. The night was far from over, but for the first time, the girl wasn't completely alone. The second patrol car's engine shut off, leaving only the low rumble of waves below and the whistling wind above the cliffs. The red and blue lights flickered across the dark rocks, painting the scene in sharp, pulsing colors. 2 more officers approached quickly, their boots crunching on gravel, hands resting near their belts as they scanned the tense standoff. The first officer, still holding the boy's phone as evidence, gestured toward the rich man. This man was caught on camera, pushing his daughter's wheelchair toward the cliff. He said firmly, "Video evidence is clear. Back up him for transport and secure the girl." The rich man let out a dry, bitter laugh. It was cold, mocking-like. He still believed he could turn this around. "You think this is over? Do you even know who I am?" He said, his voice louder now. "You arrest me and I'll have 10 lawyers here by morning. We'll all be suspended before sunrise." Younger of the 2 new officers didn't flinch. His voice was calm, almost bored. "Then I guess we'll meet your lawyers in the morning. For now, hands behind your back." The man's sharp eyes darted around the scene. The officers, the boy, his terrified daughter trapped, but still calculating. And then, for just a moment, something flickered across his face. A decision. The man slowly raised his hands, but his right hand didn't stay still. It slipped slightly into his coat pocket again. The boy noticed instantly. His voice cut through the howling wind, sharp and loud. "He's reaching for something." "Think that..." Officers reacted in a flash, their hands going to their holsters. "Stop. Hands up now." One barked. The man froze, his fingers just inside the pocket. He lifted his gaze, his calm mask slipping into something darker, slowly, deliberately. He pulled his hand back out, empty. His lips curved into a small, cold smile. "Relax," he said softly, his tone mocking. "I was just adjusting my coat," but the boy knew better. He had seen that twitch, that hesitation. Whatever the man was planning, it wasn't just adjusting. The girl's voice broke through the tension, weak and trembling. "Just take him away. I can't be near him anymore." Her tear-streaked face turned to the officers, her wide eyes begging silently. One of the new officers crouched beside her, his voice softer now. "You're safe. We'll get you out of here. Do you have anyone we can call? A family member? A friend?" The girl shook her head slowly. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "No, he's all I had." Her eyes flicked toward her father, full of a mix of pain and betrayal. "He was supposed to protect me." The boy, standing close, gently rested a hand on her wheelchair handle. "You're not alone anymore," he said quietly, his voice firm. "I'll make sure they help you, I promise." The rich man's cold eyes shifted to the boy again. He tilted his head slightly, speaking just loud enough for the boy to hear over the wind. "You think you've won tonight? You think they'll really care about a girl like her, or a kid like you? Wait until my people get here. This will all disappear." The boy met his gaze without flinching. "Not this time," he said firmly. "The video's already uploaded." For the first time, the man's confident expression faltered. His eyes narrowed sharply. "Uploaded." The boy nodded once, his stare unshaken. "Cloud backup. Even if you break the phone, it's too late." The rich man's jaw tightened, his nostrils flaring slightly. He knew he couldn't erase the evidence now, but his eyes still held that dangerous glint, the kind that said he wasn't finished, just waiting. The officers began to move in, one holding out a pair of handcuffs. The man didn't resist, not fully. He let his hands be pulled behind his back, but his gaze never left the boy. Even as the cuffs clicked into place, his cold smile returned. Faint but unnerving. "You're making a powerful enemy," he murmured, his voice low. "I don't forget faces. Or voices." The boy didn't respond this time, simply stood by the girl, making sure the officers kept the man at a distance. Another sound broke through the scene, a deep, distant hum. Faint at first, but growing louder. The officers glanced up, their flashlights catching movement in the sky. A helicopter, its lights blinking, was heading in their direction. The girl's eyes widened as she tilted her head up, her trembling voice, whispering, "What? What is that?" The boy frowned, his gut tightening. "That's not a police helicopter." The rich man's lips curled into a slow, knowing smirk. Gosh, even in handcuffs, his voice carried a chilling calm. Right. On time. The officers exchanged wary glances, their hands instinctively tightening around their radios and holsters.
How the boy's chest tightened.
He didn't know who was in that helicopter, but he knew one thing. This night wasn't ending yet. The red and blue. Lights from the patrol cars reflected off the rocks as the helicopter's roar grew louder. The wind kicked up even stronger, tossing dust and loose gravel into the air. The girl shivered, clutching her blanket tighter as she whispered, "Please, tell me they're here to help us." The boy didn't answer. His eyes stayed fixed on the approaching chopper, his instincts screaming that something was very, very wrong. The rich man's faint smirk deepened as he muttered, "You really thought I didn't plan for everything?" The rumble of the helicopter grew louder, cutting through the howling wind and the steady crash of waves below. Its blinking lights pierced the darkness, circling once before lowering toward the cliff. A powerful rotor wash kicked up dust, gravel and cold air, forcing everyone to shield their faces. The officers braced themselves, gripping their belts as their radios crackled. "This isn't police," one of them muttered over the roar, his hand tightening on his holster.
How?
"They didn't call in another unit." The boy squinted through the swirling dust, his hoodie whipping against him as he leaned over the wheelchair, shielding the girl. Her thin hands clutched his sleeve, her wide eyes locked on the descending chopper. Her trembling voice barely rose above the noise. Who is that? Are they here for us?" The rich man handcuffed, but eerily calm smirked faintly. Even with his expensive coat whipping in the wind, he looked composed, almost smug. His voice carried through the chaos, low and chilling. "They're here for me." The officers instantly stiffened. The younger one raised his voice over the rotor noise, "Sir, you're in custody? Whoever that is, they land here. They're getting detained too." The man chuckled under his breath, shaking his head slightly. "You don't get it, do you? They don't answer to you. And they won't wait for permission before the officers could respond. The helicopter hovered closer, its searchlight snapping on. A blinding white beam flooded the cliffside, locking onto the scene below like a spotlight. The girl winced, covering her eyes. The boy crouched lower beside her, positioning himself between her and the light. Then, a deep voice boomed through. A loudspeaker from the helicopter, "Release him now." The officers exchanged tense glances. The older one raised his radio to his mouth. "Dispatch, we've got an unidentified chopper demanding we release a suspect. Need confirmation?" And immediate backup. Only static answered. The wind and the chopper's interference were jamming the signal. The rich man's calm voice cut through the chaos. Directed at the boy this time. "If you really thought a little video would save you, that you could stand against me?" His cold smile deepened as he tilted his head toward the chopper. "My people don't lose. They erase problems." The boy clenched his jaw, his hands tightening on the wheelchair's handles. He leaned down slightly, speaking close to the girl's ear so she could hear him over the roar. "Whatever happens, don't let go. I won't let them take you." Grip tightened on his sleeve, her tearful eyes shining in the harsh searchlight. "Please don't leave me," not like he did. Suddenly, a rope ladder dropped from the helicopter, whipping violently in the wind. Dark figures in tactical gear began descending quickly, their faces hidden behind black visors. They moved, with precision too fast, coordinated to be ordinary security guards. One of the officers drew his weapon, shouting over the roar, "Stop! You're trespassing on an active investigation. Stand down." The figures didn't slow. They hit the ground one by one, surrounding the scene in a loose circle, their silent movements chilling in their discipline. The boy instinctively stepped in front of the wheelchair, his body tense, his phone gripped tightly in his pocket even though the main recording was already in the cloud. His instincts screamed that these men weren't here to negotiate. The rich man, still cuffed, stepped forward slightly despite the officers blocking him. His smug tone carried over the chaos. "Now, officers, are you going to uncuff me? Or are you going to make this messy?" The older officer's stance tightened. His hand rested firmly on his holster as he barked, "You're not going anywhere. Your helicopter friend so much as twitch wrong. We call in the whole county," and he was cut off by the sound of a safety clicking off. One of the black-clad men had raised a weapons leak dark, aimed not at the officers, but at the boy. The boy froze, his breath catching. The girl whimpered, clutching his sleeve so tightly her knuckles turned white. The rich man's voice turned cold, almost whisper soft, but audible over the storm of noise. "Give me the phone, and walk away, or neither of you leaves this cliff alive." The officers drew their weapons instantly, their shouts sharp and commanding. "Drop it! Drop your weapons now!" The tactical figures didn't flinch, their visors reflecting the flashing patrol lights. The boy's mind raced. He knew the video was safe, but that didn't matter if they didn't survive tonight. He tightened his grip on the wheelchair, positioning himself slightly behind one of the squad cars for cover, whispering to the girl, "Stay low. Don't move unless I tell you." Her tears streamed silently down her face as she nodded, her body trembling. The wind roared louder, as if the sea itself was holding its breath for what would happen next. The helicopter hovered just overhead, its rotors chopping the air. The searchlight still locked on them all. Rich man, handcuffed but standing tall, looked less like a prisoner and more like a general watching his troops close in. His cold smile returned as he said softly, "This is your last chance, boy. Hand over the phone and maybe you walk away." The boy straightened, his jaw set, glanced at the girl, terrified but holding an hand, then at the officers, their weapons trained but outnumbered. His voice was calm but low, almost a whisper. "Carried by the wind, you picked the wrong cliff. And the wrong kid." A sudden, sharp sound cut through the chaos, the unmistakable thrup-thwop of another rotor. But this time, it's coming from the opposite direction. The rich man's confident expression faltered. His tactical men paused, their helmets turning toward the horizon. Over the roar of the waves and the chopper above, another aircraft approached, lower, heavier, faster. Its dark silhouette emerged from the night, military grade, with bright spotlights that cut through the darkness like swords. The boy's eyes widened, a mix of relief and confusion crossing his face. The girl's trembling voice barely rose above the noise. Who is that?" The boy whispered almost to himself. Not his people. Someone else. And for the first time tonight, the rich man's smug expression cracked. The night sky split with sound. The second helicopter came in fast, its deep, rhythmic thrup-thwop vibrating through the ground. Its rotors sliced the wind, throwing loose gravel and dirt into the air like a storm. And this wasn't a corporate chopper. It was heavier, louder, painted in matte black with glowing lights under the belly. Its searchlights snapped on, sweeping across the cliff. The tactical figures in black froze for a moment, their visors reflecting the new beam. The rich man's confident smirk faltered, his cold eyes narrowing as he tilted his head to get a better look. "That's not mine," he muttered, almost to himself. For the first time all night, there was a hint of uncertainty in his voice. The boy stood protectively beside the wheelchair, the wind whipping at his hoodie. His gaze flicked between the two helicopters, his chest tight with tension. He leaned close to the girl and whispered, "Stay down. Whatever happens, don't let go." Her trembling hand clutched his sleeve like it was her lifeline. She whispered back, her voice almost lost to the wind. Who are they? Are they here to help us?" The boy didn't answer, 'cause he didn't know. Not yet. The second helicopter descended lower, its lights locking on the cliff. Through the deafening noise, a new voice cut across the air, booming. Through a loudspeaker, "Stand down, drop your weapons and clear the area now." The tactical figures surrounding the scene turned toward the sound, their movements sharp but hesitant. The officers on the ground took the opportunity to advance, their guns still drawn. The older officer shouted, his voice almost drowned by the rotors, "Whoever you are, identify yourselves." This is an active police scene. There was no response, only the deep, mechanical hum of the helicopter hovering closer. Then, ropes dropped from its side, just like the first chopper. But the figures sliding down were different, bulkier, more heavily armed. And each one had a glowing insignia on their chest. A silver eagle, the mark of a federal tactical unit. The rich man's expression finally cracked. His cold composure slipped into a tight scowl. He muttered under his breath, "They weren't supposed to know, not yet." The boy's eyes narrowed as he caught the words. He didn't know who these new figures were, but if they weren't the rich man's allies, maybe, just maybe, the odds had shifted. The federal agents hit the ground with precision, their weapons instantly trained on the first tactical team. Their leader, a tall figure with a commanding stance, barked through a modulated voice amplifier. "By order of federal authority, stand down and disarm. This is a secure operation now." The corporate tactical squad didn't move at first. Their leader tilted his head, his voice flat and robotic through a mask. "You're interfering in a private recovery. Step aside." The federal leader didn't hesitate, his weapon raised slightly, his tone cold and final. "Last warning. Stand down, or we put you down." The tension on the cliff reached a breaking point. The two squads stared each other down, their weapons ready. The officers stayed behind their vehicles for cover. Glancing nervously between the two forces, the boy crouched beside the wheelchair, keeping the girl low. Her tears streaked through the dust clinging to her face, her whisper shaky. "Why? Why are there two of them? Who are they really after?" The boy swallowed hard, his eyes never leaving the standoff. "Not us. Not just us. They want him." His gaze flicked toward the rich man who stood silently now, his cuffed hands clenched into fists. The man finally spoke, his voice rising just enough to cut through the rotor noise. "You're making a mistake," he said to the federal unit. "You think you can take me without consequences? Do you know how deep my reach goes? How many people will burn for this?" The federal leader didn't respond, simply made a hand. Signal, and two agents advanced toward the man. One of them spoke curtly. "By order of the federal government, you're coming with us, alive or otherwise." The corporate tactical team snapped into action. Their weapons came up, forming a defensive line around the rich man. The sound of safeties clicking off was swallowed by the roaring wind. The girl whimpered, ducking her head as the boy shielded her with his body. The federal unit spread out, taking positions. The leader's voice cut through the chaos one last time. "Final warning. Drop your weapons, or we engage." For a long, terrible moment, the only sounds were the twin rotor blades hammering the air and the distant roar of waves. Then, a single shot rang out. No one knew who fired first, but suddenly, the cliff exploded with chaos. Muzzle flashes lit the darkness, bullets sparking off rocks and kicking up gravel. The boy dove behind a squad car, gripping the wheelchair and pulling the girl with him to cover. The girl screamed, her voice raw with fear. Are we going to die here?" The boy's teeth clenched as he crouched low, glancing around the car to assess the chaos. "No," he said firmly, though his voice shook. "Not while I'm here.
Stay down."
No matter what." The officers returned fire, though they were clearly outgunned and pinned down. The federal and corporate squads clashed fiercely, their gunfire echoing off the cliffside like thunder. Through the chaos, the rich man crouched low, his cold eyes scanning for an opening. Despite the handcuffs, he moved with an unsettling calm. And then, quietly, he began inching toward the boy and the girl. The boy spotted the movement. His pulse spiked. He shifted his stance, putting himself directly between the man and the girl, his fists tightening. "You're not taking her," he shouted over the gunfire. "Not tonight, not ever." The man's cold smile returned, even with bullets flying. Around them, "You think you can stop me, boy? You're just a kid. When this smoke clears, no one will even remember your name." The boy stood his ground, his voice cutting like steel. "They'll remember the video. They'll remember what you did. And I'll make sure she's safe, even if it kills me." For a brief moment, the two locked eyes, two figures on opposite sides of the chaos, each refusing to back down. Then, above the roar of the battle, a deep, commanding voice boomed from the federal helicopter. "Target secured. Prepare for extraction." The boy's breath caught. They weren't leaving empty-handed, but who, exactly, was the target? Gunfire echoed across the cliff like rolling thunder, each burst lighting the dark with flashes of orange. The wind carried the acrid smell of gunpowder, mixing with the salt from the crashing sea below. Gravel sprayed as bullets ricocheted off rocks, forcing the boy to duck lower behind the patrol car. Shielding the girl clung to his arm, her eyes wide, her body trembling. Her voice cracked as she whispered, Who are they really after? Is it him?" Her fearful gaze darted toward her father, still crouched several feet away, his expensive coat dirt-streaked, but his cold expression unshaken. The boy's eyes stayed fixed on the chaos beyond the car. The federal agents and the rich man's tactical team were locked in a deadly standoff, neither side giving an inch. He leaned down to the girl, his voice low but steady. "Not us. Not yet. They want him. Out. But we're caught in the middle." Her grip tightened on his sleeve. "Then why? Why do I feel like we're not getting out of here alive?" The loudspeaker on the federal helicopter boomed again, cutting through the gunfire. "Target secured. Prepare for extraction." Words hung in the air like a blade. The boy's breath caught. Target secured? But no one had been captured yet. His eyes snapped toward the federal unit leader, who was signaling two of his men. They weren't moving toward the rich man. They were moving toward the girl. The boy's chest tightened. He positioned himself between the agents and the wheelchair instantly, his voice sharp despite the chaos. "She's not your target. She's not going anywhere." The two agents didn't slow. Their weapons weren't raised, but their movements were swift, deliberate, trained. One of them spoke, his modulated voice cold and firm. "Stand aside, we have orders." The boy's fists clenched. Orders from who? "She's not a criminal. She's a victim." Before the agents could answer, the rich man's voice cut through. The noise, dark and mocking. "She's not a victim, boy. She's an asset." His cold smile widened as his gaze flicked to his daughter. "Why do you think I brought her here in the first place? Why do you think they're all here now?" The girl froze. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Asset. What are you talking about?" Her wide, tear-filled eyes darted between her father and the federal agents. Confusion, overtaking fear for a moment. The man tilted his head, his voice low and deliberate. "You never asked why you were in that chair, did you? Or why they've been watching you since you were a child?" The boy's jaw tightened. "Enough," he snapped, his stance firm. "You're not scaring her anymore." The man chuckled. Darkly, "I'm not scaring her. I'm telling her the truth. She's not just my daughter. She's a project, a test subject, something far more valuable than any of you can imagine." The girl's breath came in shaky gasps. Tears blurred her vision as she shook her head. "No, you're lying. You're just saying that to hurt me." But the federal leader's voice, calm and cold, confirmed the unthinkable. "Retrieve the subject. Priority 1. The boy stepped forward, blocking the wheelchair completely with his body. "Not happening," he growled. "I don't care who you work for. She's not leaving with anyone." The two federal agents halted, their weapons still lowered, but their stances unyielding. One of them said flatly, "Kid, move. Want to hurt you, but if you interfere, we will." The boy's pulse pounded in his ears, but he didn't move. His voice was steady, even as his hands trembled slightly. "You'll have to go through me first." The firefight between the federal and corporate squads slowed. Both sides seemed to realize the real prize wasn't the rich man, it was the girl. Their weapons shifted subtly, no longer aimed just at each other, but at the space around the boy and the wheelchair. The rich man rose slowly, despite the handcuffs digging into his wrists. His cold gaze swept over the cliff, his tactical team, and the federal agents. Then he looked at his daughter. His tone was calm, almost gentle, but his words cut like a knife. "You were never meant to survive tonight. But maybe Maybe I can still profit from this. The boy's jaw tightened. You're not touching her. The man tilted his head, his smirk faint but chilling. Oh, I don't have to. They will. He nodded toward the federal unit. And when they take her, you'll wish you had let me finish what I started. The girl's tears streamed freely now as she gripped the boy's arm. Her voice was a whisper, broken and terrified. Why? Why me? Why are they all after me? Boy crouched beside her, meeting her eyes. His voice softened even as the danger closed in. I don't know. But I promise you this, no one's taking you. Not while I'm breathing. Her lips quivered. Even if it kills you? He gave a small, grim nod. Even then, deep mechanical whir cut through the chaos. The federal helicopter's side hatch opened, lowering a heavy metal cage on a light winch. It swung slightly in the wind, descending toward the cliff like a predator's claw. The federal leader barked one last order, his amplified voice booming, "Secure the girl, now." The agents began to close in. The boy took a step forward, his fists tightening, his stance ready. Behind him, the girl's terrified whisper carried on the wind. Please, don't let them take me. The boy glanced back at her, his eyes full of fire. Then, as the agents lunged forward, the boy made his move. The metal cage kept lowering, swaying dangerously in the wind as the helicopter hovered above. The federal agents moved in, their boots crunching over gravel as they closed the circle. Around the boy and the girl, the corporate tactical squad, now holding their fire, also shifted position. Their weapons subtly trained not on the federal agents, but on the wheelchair. The rich man stood between them all, still cuffed, but somehow looking in control. His cold, calm voice carried through the whipping wind. Take her. I don't care who gets her. Just, shh, don't let the boy walk away. Ah! The girl's grip on the boy's sleeve tightened, her knuckles pale. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, Why? Why won't they stop? What do they want with me? The boy crouched beside her for just a second, his voice steady, despite the chaos. They don't see you as a person, but I do. I'm not letting them win. She swallowed hard, her tearful eyes locked on his. Even if we don't make it out. The boy gave a grim nod. Even then, one of the federal agents lunged forward, grabbing for the wheelchair handle. The boy moved, instantly ducking low, twisting and shoving the agent back. With all his strength, the man stumbled but didn't fall, his armored boots digging into the gravel. The federal leader raised a hand, his voice cold and commanding through the amplifier. Kid, you're in over your head. Stand down or we take you too. The boy stood his ground, his chest rising and falling with sharp breaths. No, you'll have to drag me off this cliff before I let you take her. The rich man chuckled darkly, his eyes glinting with amusement. That can be arranged. Suddenly, the corporate squad sprang into motion, moving toward the wheelchair from the opposite side. The boy spun, realizing too late they were trying to trap him in a pincer-move federal. Agents from one side, corporate operatives from the other. The girl's frightened voice cracked. They're closing in. What do we do? The boy scanned the cliff quickly. Loose rocks. A narrow dirt path leading down the side of the cliff, dangerous but not impossible. And, 100 feet below, a small inlet where the waves didn't crash as hard. He looked back at her, his jaw tightening. Can you hold on tight? She nodded quickly, her eyes wide. Why? What are you? Before she could finish, he spun the wheelchair sharply and pushed it toward the dirt path. Gravel skidded under the wheels as he steered her toward the steep slope. Shouts erupted from both sides. Stop them, one of the agents barked. The federal leader's amplified voice cut through the chaos. Do not let the subject leave the perimeter. The boy sprinted behind the wheelchair, controlling its speed as best he could as they hit the edge of the slope. The path was narrow, the cliff face looming on one side and a sheer drop on the other. Every turn sent gravel spraying into the dark void below. The girl's voice trembled. We're going down there? Are you insane? The boy's breath came in sharp bursts as he controlled the chair. Would you rather let them take you? Her lips pressed tight, her eyes watering, but she shook her head quickly. No, keep going. Behind them, heavy boots pounded as agents and operatives gave chase. The sound of gunfire returned short, sharp bursts aimed at the rocks around them to slow them down. Bullets sparked off the cliff face, showering them with tiny shards of stone. The boy ducked low, steering the chair faster, his focus razor-sharp. His voice came out as a harsh whisper over the roaring wind. "Hold on. Don't let go, no matter what." The girl clung to the armrests, her body jolting with every bump in the path. Her whisper was nearly lost in the chaos. "I trust you. Just don't let me fall." Halfway down the path, the cliff opened up slightly into a narrow plateau, a small, flat space overlooking the dark inlet below. The boy stopped for a moment, catching his breath. The girl's wide eyes flicked to him. Why did we stop? They're still coming." He glanced over the edge, scanning the inlet. A small boat was moored in the shadows below, rocking gently with the tide. It wasn't a police boat. It wasn't a corporate boat. It wasn't federal. It was just there. The boy's brow furrowed. It's that boat. It's not theirs, which means someone else is here. Before the girl could reply, a voice called, out from below, calm, steady, and unfamiliar. "Over here. Get down here before they find you." The boy froze. The voice didn't sound like the federal agents or the corporate operatives, but it also didn't sound like anyone he trusted. The girl's whisper cracked, "Who is that? Another one of them." The boy shook his head slowly, his eyes narrowing as he scanned the shadows below. "I don't know, but it's our only way. Out, unless you'd rather face 2 helicopters and 20 guns." She bit her lip, her voice trembling. I'll trust you. Just don't leave me." The boy nodded firmly. "Never." Behind them, the pounding of boots grew louder, agents closing in fast. The boy gripped the wheelchair handles tightly and started down the last stretch of the slope toward the mysterious voice, not knowing if they were heading toward salvation or a new kind of danger. The dirt path grew steeper, every push of the wheelchair sending gravel skidding dangerously toward the dark drop below. The boy's breath was heavy, his hands tight on the handles as he steered carefully down the final stretch. The wind carried the distant shouts of agents climbing down after them. But the sea's roar was louder now, swallowing most of the chaos above. At the bottom of the slope, a thin strip of rocky shoreline spread out, illuminated only by the moonlight. The small boat bobbed in the shadows, its metal hull glinting faintly. Beside it stood a man tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a hooded jacket that hid most of his face. His hands were empty, open, showing no weapons. His deep, steady voice called out again, low enough not to echo. "Down here. Hurry. They'll be on you in seconds." The boy slowed near the bottom, his body tense, ready for anything. He positioned himself between the stranger and the girl, his voice sharp. "Who are you? Are you with them?" The man shook his head once, his hood shadowing his expression. "I'm not with the feds. Not with the rich man either. If you want to live, you get in the boat. Now." The girl's trembling voice rose behind the boy, soft and unsure. "Can we trust him? What if this is another trap?" Boy glanced back at her, his jaw tightening. "I don't know, but staying here means we will get caught. At least this is a chance." The girl's grip on the armrest tightened. Her whisper cracked, then died fast. "They're coming." Boots clattered on the rocks above as the first of the pursuing agents appeared at the edge of the slope, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Shouts rang out, voices sharp. "There they are! Secure the subject!" The boy made his choice. "I'll get in the boat." He pushed the wheelchair quickly over the rocks, the wheels bumping and catching on uneven ground. The hooded man moved forward, reaching to help lift the girl into the boat. The boy grabbed his wrist instinctively, his voice cold. "You touch her, and I swear," the man's tone stayed calm. "Do you want to argue, or do you want to get out of here alive?" The boy hesitated only a second before nodding tightly. Together they hoisted the girl into the boat, settling her into the middle seat. Her hands trembled as she clutched the edges, her eyes darting between them nervously. The boy climbed in next, never taking his eyes off the stranger. "Start the engine. Now." The man moved to the motor, yanking the pull cord. The old engine coughed, sputtered, then roared to life. Above them, flashlights darted along the slope as more figures descended. Bullets sparked off the rocks near. the shoreline, sending shards flying into the cold air. The boy ducked low, shielding the girl with his body as he shouted, "Go, go." Then the boat jerked forward, the small propeller biting into the water. It surged away from the shore, bouncing over the waves as the agents scrambled to the water's edge. More gunfire erupted, bullets hissing into the sea around them, sending up sprays of salt water. The girl screamed, gripping the boat's edge. "They're going to hit us." The boy crouched lower beside her, his voice steady despite the fear tightening his chest. "Stay down, I'll cover you." The hooded man didn't flinch at the gunfire. He steered the boat sharply to the left, weaving between dark rocks jutting from the waves. The agents on shore kept firing, but the distance was widening fast. Once they were far enough, the man finally spoke, his tone even but firm. "You two are lucky. Another 60 seconds, and neither of you would have made it out alive." The boy's eyes stayed narrow, his suspicion sharp. "Why help us? You don't even know us." The man's head tilted slightly. "I know enough. The girl. She's not safe with any of them. And you. You're the only one who actually tried to protect her." The girl's voice wavered as she spoke up, her eyes glistening in the dim moonlight. Do you know why they're after me?" "My father said I'm some kind of project." "Is that true?" The hooded man was silent for a long moment. Then quietly he said, "Yes, and they'll never stop. Not unless you disappear completely." The boy's jaw tightened, his fists clenching. On his knees? Disappear? You mean run for the rest of her life? That's not living? The man's gaze stayed fixed on the dark horizon as he steered. "It's better than what they have planned for her. She's special. Not because of who her father is, but because of what they did to her. She's proof of something they don't want the world to see." The girl's tears welled up again. Her whisper was barely audible over the engine. "What? What did they do to me?" The man shook his head. "I can't tell you everything, not yet, but I can take you somewhere safe, somewhere even they can't reach." The boy's eyes stayed locked on him, his voice firm. "And what's in it for you? Why risk your life for two strangers?" The man's head turned slightly, the shadows hiding most of his face. "Because once, someone did the same for me. And because, if she falls into their hands again, it won't just be her life that's ruined. It'll be a lot more than that." The waves grew calmer as they left the cliff behind, the flashing lights from above fading into the distance. For a brief, fragile moment, silence settled over the boat, only the hum of the engine and the soft lapping of the sea filling the air. The girl leaned slightly toward the boy, her voice trembling. "Do you trust him?" The boy glanced at the hooded man steering the boat, his jaw tightening. "No, but right now, he's the only chance we've got." She nodded faintly, clutching the edge of the seat. "Then, I'll trust you. Just don't let go." The boy gave a small nod, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "I won't." But deep down, he knew the night wasn't over. Not yet. From far behind, faint but growing louder, came the distant throp-throp of rotor blades. Another helicopter. Maybe federal, maybe corporate, or maybe someone even worse. The hooded man's grip on the steering handle tightened. His calm voice dropped into something colder, sharper. "Hold on. They're not done with us yet." The boy's gaze hardened as he crouched beside the girl, bracing her against the rough waves. Above, the dark sky swallowed the stars as the approaching sound grew closer. And somewhere in the shadows of the sea, the true enemy was closing in. The night air was colder now, the wind cutting across the waves as the small boat surged forward. The sea was dark and endless, the moonlight barely strong enough to glint off the rippling water. Behind them, the distant thwop-thwop of rotor blades grew louder, steadily closing the gap. The hooded man tightened his grip on the tiller, his voice low but firm. "They've found us. We don't have much time." The boy crouched near the girl, keeping her steady as the boat rocked. His voice was sharp, urgent. "Who is it? Federal, or her father's people?" The man didn't look back. "Neither this. Someone worse." The girl's trembling hands clutched the edge of the seat. Her voice cracked as she asked, "Worse?" How can anyone be worse than them? The man's jaw tightened. These aren't the ones trying to capture you for experiments. These are the ones who want to make sure you don't survive the night. The boy's eyes hardened. So they're not here to take her. They're here to kill her. The man nodded slightly, his hood shadowing his face. They were probably waiting. Offshore. Waiting for everyone else to fight so they could clean up what's left. The girl's tears welled up again, her whisper shaking. Why? Why are so many people after me? I didn't do anything. The boy crouched beside her, his voice soft but steady despite his pounding heart. It's not your fault. They want something you didn't choose? But I'm not letting them win, not while I'm still breathing. She looked up at him, her eyes glistening. Even if it kills you. He gave a small nod. Even then, helicopter's lights finally broke through the clouds, two bright beams sweeping across the Black Sea. They weren't searchlights. Were hunting lights fixed and piercing, scanning for their tiny boat. The deep hum of the rotors grew heavier, closer. As the machine lowered toward the waves, the hooded man's voice turned sharp. They've locked on. Hold tight. He yanked the tiller, steering the boat sharply to the right. The engine whined as the hull cut through the water, bouncing hard over the waves. Salt spray stung their faces as they sped toward a cluster of dark shapes, ahead jagged rocks jutting from the ocean. The girl gasped. Gripping the seat so tightly her knuckles turned white, we're going straight into the rocks. The boy held onto her, leaning low to shield her from the spray. He knows what he's doing, I hope. The helicopter swooped lower, the thundering sound of its rotors filling the air. From its open side hatch, a figure leaned out, shouldering a sleek weapon. A single flash of light, and a bullet hit the water just feet from the boat, sending up a violent spray. The boy's voice snapped over the roar. They're not warning shots. They're trying to sink us. The hooded man's eyes narrowed beneath. His hood, he pulled something from under his jacket, a compact flare gun. Without warning, he fired it upward. The flare exploded in the sky, a bright burst of red light. The boy flinched, his voice sharp. What are you doing? Signaling them. The man shook his head. No, signaling someone else. From behind the rocks, a faint engine hum emerged. Another boat larger, sleeker, and armed with a mounted light roared to life, pulling out from the shadows. Its lights switched on, sweeping across the waves as it surged toward them. The girl's wide eyes flicked between the two boats, panic rising in her voice. Another one? Are they with him, or against us? The hooded man's voice was calm but urgent. They're with me. They'll cover us. Hold on. The boy stayed crouched beside the girl, his gaze locked on the oncoming boat. You'd better be telling the truth. This is another trick, I swear. The man cut him off, his tone steady. Do you want to argue, or do you want to survive? The new boat sped past them, its driver signaling with a flash of light. Then, with a sharp turn, it positioned itself between their boat and the descending helicopter. A mounted gun swung upward, and a deafening burst of fire erupted into the night. Tracer rounds lit up the sky, forcing the helicopter to veer off sharply to avoid being hit. The girl covered her ears, tears streaming down her face from the noise and chaos. They're fighting back, but for how long? The boy leaned close, whispering near her ear. Long enough for us to get away. Just stay low. The hooded man pushed the throttle, the engine screaming as their boat surged forward. The other boat continued firing, keeping the helicopter at bay, buying them precious seconds. But then, over the thunder of gunfire and rotor blades, another sound rose, a deep, distant rumble. The hooded man's eyes narrowed. Another one. No, 2 more helicopters incoming. The boy's stomach sank. How many people are after her? The man's voice stayed calm, but his grip on the tiller tightened. Too many, which means we don't fight, we vanish. The girl's whisper was faint, desperate. Vanish how? Man glanced back, his hood shadowing his face. There's a sea cave ahead. It's narrow, dangerous, but the helicopters can't. Follow us inside. We get in there. We disappear from their scanners, but you'd better hold on tight. It's one wrong turn, and this boat gets smashed to pieces. The boy crouched lower beside the girl, bracing her against the seat. His voice was firm, steady, even as fear clawed at his chest. "You heard him. Whatever happens, don't let go." She nodded quickly, her tears mixing with the sea spray. "I trust you. Trust both of you. Just don't leave me behind." The hooded man gunned the engine, the boat skimming across the waves at breakneck speed. The roar of the approaching helicopters grew louder, their lights sweeping the sea like hunting eyes. Ahead, the black silhouette of a cliff loomed, and at its base a jagged opening yawned, dark, narrow, and uninviting. The only escape. The man shouted over the roar of the wind and sea, "Hold on, this is going to be rough." The boat surged forward straight toward the mouth of the cave, as the first helicopter dipped low, unleashing a hail of bullets toward the water behind them. The sea roared louder as the cliffside loomed ahead, its jagged shadow blotting out the moonlight. The narrow cave entrance looked more like a crack than a passage barely wide enough for their small boat to fit through. Every wave smashed against the rocks at its mouth, sending sprays of seawater into the air like warning signs. Behind them, the sky lit up with the cold glare of searchlights. 3 helicopters now hovered above the waves, their rotors beating the air like war drums. Their combined lights swept the water, searching, closing in. The hooded man's voice cut through the wind, sharp and commanding. "Hold tight. One mistake. Here and we all go under." The boy crouched low beside the girl, wrapping one arm around the back of her seat to hold her steady. His voice was firm, though his jaw was tight with tension. "Don't move. Don't even breathe too fast." "Got you." The girl's hands clutched the sides of the boat, her knuckles white, her whisper trembled. "If we crash, will we even make it out?" The boy glanced at her, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "We're not crashing. Not while I'm here." The boat surged forward as the hooded man gunned the throttle. The hull slammed against the waves, jolting with every rise and fall. The cave's mouth was only seconds away, now dark, narrow, and violent as the tide slammed through it. Above, one helicopter dipped lower, its loudspeaker blaring over the ocean roar. "Stop the boat. Turn around now, or we open fire." "Hey." Boy's jaw clenched. "They're not bluffing. They'll shoot us even in the water." The man didn't even glance back. They can't hit what they can't see. "Once we're inside, they'll lose us." The girl whimpered softly, ducking her head as the searchlights swept over them, their beams cutting across the waves like prison bars. "They're so close. I can hear the guns." The boy leaned close, his voice low but certain. "Close your eyes. I'll tell you when to open them again." The first burst of gunfire came. Bullets hit the water around them, sending up violent sprays of salt and foam. The boat rocked hard as the hooded man swerved sharply, dodging the gunfire while keeping course toward the cave. The boy held the girl tightly against the seat, shielding her with his body. His voice was low but firm right by her ear. "I've got you. They won't hit you. Not while I'm here." The girl squeezed her eyes shut, tears slipping past her lashes, as the sound of gunfire and rotors filled the night. Every few seconds, the boat jolted violently as it cut through the waves. She whispered, barely audible, I don't want to die like this." The boy's hand tightened protectively on her arm. "You won't, I promise." Cave mouth loomed just ahead now. The waves slammed through it, sucking outward like a riptide, then crashing back in. One wrong angle, the boat would be dashed against the rocks like glass. The hooded man shouted over the roar. "When I say brace, you brace. We've got one shot to make it through." The boy nodded quickly, keeping the girl steady. She whispered, shakily, "What if we don't make it?" The boy leaned close, his voice a whisper just for her. "Then I'll make sure it's quick. But we're not stopping." Not now. The helicopters swooped lower, their lights converging on the boat as if to trap it in a cage of white beams. One of them fired another round, bullets striking the water, just feet from the bow. The girl screamed, clutching the boy's sleeve. "They're going to hit us before we even get inside." The hooded man yanked the tiller sharply, spinning the boat to avoid the next volley. His voice was a growl, full of urgency.
"Hold on. When I say now, get down flat."
The cave mouth was seconds away. The boy tightened his grip on the girl. Crouching low beside her, his voice was calm despite the chaos. "Whatever happens, don't let go of me. Understand?" She nodded quickly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I trust you. Trust you both," the hooded man shouted now. The boy pulled the girl down flat against the seat, shielding her with his body as the boat shot forward. The hole scraped the edge of the cave as they blasted through, sparks flying from the metal. For a moment, everything was deafening. Roar of the sea, the engines, the gunfire behind them, the echo of it all inside the narrow cavern. Darkness swallowed them almost instantly. The helicopter's lights couldn't penetrate the twisting, jagged walls. The noise from outside grew faint as the boat plunged deeper into the winding passage. The girl's trembling voice broke the silence first. Are we safe now?" Hooded man's voice echoed softly through the cave. "Not yet. They can't follow us. They'll wait at the exit. We'll need another way out." The cave twisted sharply, the walls narrowing until they could almost touch both sides with their hands. The air was damp and cold, the sound of dripping water echoing eerily. The boy kept his arm around the girl, steadying her as the boat slowed to navigate the tighter turns. Her whisper broke the uneasy quiet. "Why? Why is everyone after me? What am I to them?" The hooded man finally spoke, his voice lower now, almost solemn. "You're living proof of something they buried a long time ago. Something that, if the world saw it, would destroy people far more powerful than your father." The boy glanced up sharply. "What does that mean? What did they do to her?" The man's grip tightened on the tiller. "You'll find out soon enough. But first, we need to get out of here alive." Up ahead, faint light flickered through cracks in the cave walls, small shafts of moonlight breaking through. The man steered toward one, his voice steady. "There's a hidden channel on the other side. If we make it through, we'll be invisible to their scanners." The boy stayed close to the girl, whispering softly to calm her trembling. "Almost there. Just hold on a little longer." She nodded faintly, whispering back, "I trust you, both of you. Just don't let go." The hooded man guided the boat into the narrow side channel, the walls closing in so tight they could barely fit. Behind them, the sound of distant rotors faded into silence, but as they moved deeper into the hidden path, a new sound echoed faintly ahead. The low hum of an engine, not theirs, not the helicopter's. Someone else was waiting in. The dark. The boat glided through the narrow channel, its engine now running at the lowest possible hum. The walls of the cave were so close the boy could reach out and touch the cold, wet stone. Each drop of water echoing from the ceiling made the silence heavier, more suffocating. The girl clung to the boy's arm, her body trembling despite his steady grip. Her whisper was barely audible. "That sound, that engine. Someone's here." The boy's eyes narrowed, scanning the darkness ahead. "Yeah, and they're not here to help." The hooded man kept his voice low but firm, his hand steady on the tiller. "Stay quiet. If they don't know we're here yet, we might slip by. But if they do, this gets messy." The faint hum grew louder with every second. Then, around, a bend, a dim red light glowed in the darkness. An idle boat, floating still. Its engine was barely running, just enough to keep it from drifting. And on that boat stood two figures, barely visible in the gloom. One held a flashlight, scanning the water. The other held something longer, heavier. A rifle. The girl's breath hitched. "There, waiting for us." The boy crouched lower, putting himself between her and the approaching boat. His whisper was sharp but calm. "Stay down. Don't move until I say." The hooded man's voice dropped even lower. "They know we're here. No sneaking past this time." He reached into his jacket, pulling out something small. Another flare, but darker, almost black. He held it low, whispering to the boy, "This isn't for light. When I throw it, cover your ears." The boy frowned. "What is it?"
Ah.
The man's voice was a whisper, a flashbang. "They'll be blind and deaf for 10 seconds. That's our only window." The girl's fingers tightened on the boy's sleeve. 10 seconds. What if we can't get past them in time? The boy leaned close to her, his voice steady. Then I'll buy us more time, no matter what. The idle boat drifted. Slightly closer, its flashlight beams sweeping across the cave walls. The man with the rifle shifted, aiming casually toward the water. The figure with the light called out, his voice echoing eerily through the cavern. We know you're here. Don't make us drag you out. The hooded man didn't answer. Instead, he pulled the pin on the flashbang and whispered, Brace. The boy wrapped one arm around the girl, pulling her close, and pressed his other hand over her ears. Close your eyes now. The hooded man tossed the device across the water. It clinked once against the enemy boat, and then detonated with a blinding burst of white light and a deafening crack. The cavern lit up like lightning, shadows leaping across the walls. The two figures on the other boat staggered, clutching their ears and dropping their weapons as they reeled from the explosion. The hooded man gunned the throttle, the engine roaring to life. Hold on! The boat shot forward, speeding straight past the blinded men. The hull scraped the side of their boat as they flew by, sending it rocking violently. The girl whimpered, clinging to the boy as the boat jolted hard. The boy kept her close, his voice calm, even as adrenaline surged through him. It's okay, we're almost through. As they rounded another sharp bend, the faint glow of moonlight appeared ahead, a second exit from the cave, narrow but open. The hooded man didn't slow down. We're clear, just hold tight for a few more seconds. But before they could reach the opening, another noise rose from the dark, the low growl of another engine. This one wasn't behind them, was ahead. A larger boat slid into view, blocking the exit. Its spotlight flicked on, blindingly bright in the confined space. A voice boomed from a speaker, cold and commanding. You're not leaving. Hand over the girl, and you walk away alive. The girl's trembling whisper cracked. They've got us surrounded. The boy crouched closer to her, his voice a low whisper. They're bluffing. They don't want us. They only want you. Her teary eyes met his. Then let me go. Maybe they'll let you live. The boy shook his head sharply. Not happening. I told you I'm not letting anyone take. You, not while I'm breathing. The hooded man's voice stayed calm, but deliberate. They're armed. Bigger boat, heavier guns. Can't outrun them, but we can outsmart them. The boy glanced at him sharply. How? The man's hand reached into a compartment by the tiller. He pulled out a small, weathered detonator with a red button. By taking away their boat, the girl's eyes widened. What is that? The man didn't hesitate. A remote charge. I planted it in this cave earlier, just in case. When they get close enough, we give them a surprise. The boy's brow furrowed. You're telling me you trapped this cave? You were expecting this? The man's voice was steady, but there was an edge to it now. I've been one step ahead of them all night. Trust me now, or we're all dead. The larger boat moved closer, its spotlight blinding them. The voice from the speaker called out again, sharper. This is your last chance. Hand over the girl? The hooded man looked at the boy. When I say jump, take her and dive. Deep as you can. Understand? The boy's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Got it. The girl clutched his arm, her whisper panicked. What's happening? What's he going to do? The boy leaned close, his voice low but firm. He's going to blow that boat sky high, and we're not sticking around to watch. The hooded man's voice dropped to a growl. He slammed his thumb on the detonator. The cave walls lit up in a blinding flash as a massive explosion ripped through the water, shaking the entire cavern. The larger boat's spotlight shattered, its hull erupting in flames as the blast sent shock waves through the channel. Jump, the hooded man shouted. The boy grabbed the girl and dove into the black water as the burning wreckage toppled sideways, filling the cave with smoke and fire. The cold sea swallowed them, the sound of chaos muffled instantly. The icy black water swallowed them whole. The explosion above was just a muffled roar now, distant and ghostly beneath the surface. The boy clung tightly to the girl, kicking hard to pull her deeper. Away from the wreckage and the rain of flaming debris, her body trembled violently against him, her breath bursting out in panicked bubbles. She couldn't swim. She could barely move her legs. And the deeper they sank, the darker the world became. The boy's mind screamed for air, but he didn't loosen his grip, not even as his chest burned. Not even as the cold cut into his bones, not letting go. Above them, faint shadows, flickered wreckage, pieces of the shattered enemy boat sinking slowly through the water. A dim, distorted light filtered down from the cave's cracks, but it wasn't enough to see clearly. Just enough to know they weren't alone. The hooded man dove in after them, cutting through the water with strong, deliberate strokes. In his hand, he carried a small, cylindrical object that pulsed faintly with blue light, a beacon. He motioned for the boy to follow as he swam toward a shadowed archway in the side of the cavern. The boy tightened his grip on the girl, kicking toward the beacon. Her wide, panicked eyes met his, bubbles escaping her lips as she mouthed silently, "I can't." He pulled her closer, pressing his forehead briefly to hers. His thoughts were calm but unyielding. "Yes, you can. Just a little longer." Her breathing slowed, not from calm, but from fading strength.
Ow.
The boy kicked harder, feeling his own lungs scream for air until they finally reached the shadowy opening. The hooded man disappeared into the archway first. The boy followed, dragging the girl through the narrow passage as the faint blue light pulsed ahead of them. For a moment, it felt like the stone walls were closing in, the water colder, heavier. The tunnel twisted sharply before finally sloping upward. Then, suddenly, they broke the surface. Ere the boy gasped, pulling the girl up so she could breathe. Her coughs echoed off the stone walls, her chest rising and falling rapidly as she clung to him. The hooded man surfaced beside them, pulling himself onto a narrow, rocky ledge. "This way," he said, his voice calm, despite the chaos outside. "They'll be searching the main exits. We take the old channel and they'll never find us." Boy lifted the girl carefully onto the ledge before climbing up himself. Her lips trembled as she clutched his sleeve. I thought we were going to drown." He knelt beside her, brushing wet strands of hair from her face. His voice was soft but steady. "I told you I am not letting that happen, not while I'm still here." Her teary eyes met his, a faint whisper escaping. Why? Why are you risking everything for me? You don't even know me." The boy's jaw tightened as he glanced at the hooded man, then back at her. "Because you didn't choose this life, and because I know what it feels like to be hunted for something you never wanted." The hooded man adjusted the beacon, dimming its light so it only glowed faintly. "We can rest for 1 minute, then we move. This passage leads to the open sea, but it's a maze. Stay close and don't make a sound." The girl's voice was barely above a whisper. "What happens if they find us again?" The man's tone stayed calm, but there was steel in it. "Then we fight. But I'd rather not, if you want to see the sun again." The boy glanced toward the water behind them, where faint echoes of rotor blades still pulsed through the stone. "They're still out there, probably waiting at every exit." The man gave a short nod. "They are. But they won't expect us to take the passage that goes under the reef. Most people don't know it exists. It's because most people who try it don't make it through." The girl's voice cracked. Then, "Why are we taking it?" The hooded man met her eyes briefly. "Because the only other way is back through the main cave. And I don't think you want to meet whoever's waiting." "There," she lowered her gaze, her hands trembling. Her whisper was faint, almost lost in the dripping water. I just want this to end." The boy placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "It will, I promise. But you have to keep going a little longer." She nodded weakly, her tears mixing with the seawater on her cheeks. "Then I'll trust you. Both of you. Just don't let go." They slid back into the cold water, following the faint glow of the beacon deeper into the passage. This tunnel was even narrower than the last. With the roof so low at points they had to duck their heads beneath the surface to keep moving. The sound of the ocean was different here, muted, as if the world above no longer existed. But then, from far ahead, a new sound emerged. Not rotors, not waves. A low, pulsing hum, mechanical and unnatural, The hooded man stopped, his hand lifting to signal silence. Whispered, his voice barely audible over the dripping cave water. "They're here." To find this place, the boy's brow furrowed. Who? More of her father's men? The man shook his head slowly. No worse. These are the people her father was afraid of. If they get her, there's no bringing her back. The girl's trembling hand found the boy's arm under the water. Her whisper cracked, full of fear. What? What do we do? The boy's jaw tightened as he kept his eyes fixed on the faint glow ahead. We don't stop. Get you out, no matter what it takes. The hooded man raised the beacon slightly, revealing a faint path branching off to the left, barely wide enough for a single person to swim through. He glanced back, his voice low. This is it. It's the only way they won't follow us. But it's tight, long, and pitch black. The boy nodded without hesitation. We'll make it. We don't have a choice. The girl's grip on his arm tightened, her tears mixing with the salt water. I'm scared. He leaned close, his voice steady despite his own fear. I know, but I'm not letting go. Not now, not ever. As they turned into the narrow passage, the pulsing hum behind them grew louder. The water rippled faintly, as if something large was moving closer. The hooded man whispered one final warning as he led them in. Whatever happens, don't look back. And with that, they vanished into the darkness of the final passage. The sound of their pursuers echoing closer with every second. The narrow passage swallowed them in total darkness. The faint blue glow of the beacon flickered weakly, barely illuminating the cold water and jagged walls around them. Every sound felt louder. Hear the drip of water, the distant hum of the pursuers behind them, and the pounding of their own hearts. The boy swam beside the girl, one arm wrapped firmly around her waist to keep her steady.
Ow.
Each kick pushed them forward through the narrow, winding tunnel. Every so often they had to duck completely underwater to slip beneath sharp, low-hanging rocks. The girl's shaky breaths echoed softly. I can't tell which way is up anymore. Boy's voice stayed steady despite his own exhaustion. Just follow me. Don't think. Don't stop. Ahead, the hooded man moved with careful precision, holding the beacon low so its faint glow wouldn't give them away. His voice came back in a whisper, soft but urgent. Keep close. The passage splits ahead. One path leads out. The other. Dozen behind them, the low mechanical hum grew louder. The water began to ripple more sharply, as if something large was moving closer, something not just a boat. A faint red glow flickered in the water. Reflecting off the cave walls like blood, the girl's grip on the boy's arm tightened, her whisper trembling. There. They're right behind us. I can feel it. The boy's jaw tightened. They won't get you. I won't let them. The hooded man glanced back briefly, his hood dripping with seawater. They've sent drones, submersibles. They can track us even in the dark. The boy's brow furrowed. Then how do we lose them? The man's voice was low, deliberate. We take the left path ahead. It's narrow, almost impassable. But their machines won't fit through. The girl's whisper cracked. And if we can't fit through either, the man's gaze stayed steady, and we don't have to worry about them catching us anymore. They reached the fork in the tunnel. The right path was wide, almost inviting, lit faintly by the glow of the red lights behind them. The left was a slit between rocks, barely wide enough for one person at a time. The water swirling violently as it funneled through. The boy looked to the girl. Stay close. When I go, you go. Don't stop, no matter what. She nodded faintly, her voice almost a whisper. I trust you. Always have. The hooded man went first, slipping into the slit with practiced ease. The boy followed, keeping the girl in his arms as they pushed into the tight passage. The current tugged at them, threatening to rip them backward, but he kicked hard, forcing them forward inch by inch. Behind them, a loud metallic whirring echoed through the water. The drones had reached the fork. The red glow brightened, casting long shadows on the stone walls. One of the drones surged toward the narrow slit, its lights scanning, its mechanical arms extending. But the tunnel was too tight. The machine scraped violently against the stone, unable to follow. The hooded man whispered back, his voice tense but calm. "Keep moving. They can't reach us here, but we're not safe yet." The girl whimpered softly, burying her face against the boy's chest as they pushed forward. "Are we almost out? Please, tell me we're almost out." The boy's voice stayed low, reassuring. "Almost. Just a little further." The passage twisted sharply, forcing them underwater again. For what felt like an eternity, they swam. Through pitch black, lungs burning, every muscle screaming for air, and suddenly the water brightened. Moonlight, they broke the surface together, gasping for air as the tunnel opened into a quiet, hidden cove. The waves here were calm, lapping softly against a strip of sand bordered by high cliffs. Above, the stars shone clearly, untouched by the chaos they had escaped. The girl clung to the boy, coughing and shaking, her tears mixing with seawater. We made it, didn't we?" The hooded man pulled himself onto the sand, his breath steady despite the ordeal. "For now. They won't find this place easily. But we can't stay long, not if you want to disappear for good." The boy helped the girl onto the shore, wrapping her in his damp jacket. Her voice was faint, exhausted. "Disappear. Where would we even go? Everyone's after me, my father, those people, even the government." The hooded man knelt beside them, pulling something from his jacket, a waterproof case. Inside was a new identity packet, documents, cash, and a small communication device. He handed it to the boy. "Take her north, through the fishing routes. There's a man waiting who owes me a favor. He'll keep you both hidden. After that, you make your own path." The boy took the case, his grip firm. "What about you?" The man stood, pulling his hood back just enough for the moonlight to reveal his scarred, weathered face. "I go another way. I'm not exactly welcome where you're going." The girl looked up at him, her voice soft but sincere. "You saved us twice. Why?" The man's expression softened, just slightly. "Because a long time ago, someone saved me the same way. And because if they got you, the world wouldn't just lose another life. It would lose its last chance. To expose what they've done?" The boy's brow furrowed. "What did they do to her? Why is she so important?" The man's gaze shifted to the girl, his voice low. "She's proof. Proof that the people at the top will do anything to keep power, even create something they can't control." The girl's teary eyes widened. "Create? What am I?" The man didn't answer. He just adjusted his hood and turned toward the rocky path leading out of the cove. "You'll find out one day. But for now, just live. It's all that matters." As he disappeared into the shadows, the boy and the girl sat silently on the sand, the waves whispering softly beside them. The girl leaned against him, her voice a faint whisper. "Do you think we'll ever be safe?" "Dot!" The boy wrapped an arm around her shoulders, staring out at the calm, endless sea. "I don't know, but I do know one thing. I'm not leaving you. Not now, not ever." She closed her eyes, her trembling finally easing as the horizon began to lighten with the first hint of dawn. For the first time all night, there were no rotors, no engines, no shouts, just the sound of the ocean and the promise of a new day.